Chapter 9. Civilization in Eastern Europe, Byzantium and Orthodox Europe. Late in the 10th century, Vladimir, king of a Russian state centered in the city of Kiev, faced an important decision. What major religion should he choose, not only for himself, but for his people? Some Christian activity had been brought in from the Byzantine Empire to the south, and Vladimir's grandmother had converted, but the majority of Russians were traditionally polytheists. Vladimir's decision raised two issues. First, why decide? Why not adhere to tradition? Most of the societies around Russia were part of the growing surge of world religions that appeal to people of many cultures. Vladimir likely thought that his kingdom's growing trade and military activity could be complemented by a religion that had wider appeal than that of the traditional Russian gods. Vladimir also defending his rule against internal strife and external attack. A successful move to impose a new religion would bolster his authority. Second, decide on what. Placed as Russia was, Vladimir had thought of Islam, Judaism, Western Catholicism, and Byzantine, or Orthodox, Christianity. Legend has it that he rejected Judaism because it was not associated with a strong state. He rejected Catholicism, gaining ground in neighboring Poland, because he wanted no interference from the Pope. He rejected Islam because of its prohibition of alcohol, for drink is the joy of the Russian. In truth, the decision was pretty easy. The Byzantine Empire was Russia's prosperous neighbor, a leading trading partner, and sometime military ally. Vladimir was eager to marry the sister of the Byzantine emperor, according to another legend. The emperor was reluctant to give his sister in marriage to what he considered a backward warrior, but Vladimir captured a major Byzantine city and refused to give it back until the emperor relented. Choosing Orthodox Christianity would be a part of his larger relationship with Byzantium. Vladimir's decision was unquestionably important. Additional Byzantine influences from art and literature to manners began to shape Russian history. Christianity was extended eastward, changing the boundaries between Christianity and Islam. The Russian state did not gain new prestige and used religion to help unify its far-flung populace. At the same time, Vladimir's choice separated the kingdom from Roman Catholic Western Europe, helping to create what would become a long-standing cultural division between Eastern and Western Europe. The implications of this separation continued to affect world affairs even as other parts of Eastern and Western Europe are uniting. Civilization in Eastern Europe. During the post-classical period, two major Christian civilizations took shape in Europe. Both developed close relations with the Islamic world, and both played major roles in world trade. One centered on the papacy, P-A-P-A-C-Y, in Rome, encompassed Western Europe, but the other radiated out from Constantinople. Both civilizations had distinctive features on their own, with desirable implications for the regions involved. Eastern Europe certainly came to illustrate the diversification of state forms that was characteristic of the post-classical period. The power of the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire maintained high levels of political, economic, and cultural activity during much of the period from 500 to 1450 CE. It controlled an important but fluctuating swath of territory in the Balkans and northern Middle East, and the eastern Mediterranean. Its leaders saw themselves as Roman emperors, and their government was in many ways a direct continuation of the eastern portion of the late Roman Empire. The real significance of the Byzantine Empire goes well beyond its ability to keep Rome's memory alive. The empire lasted for almost 1,000 years, between Rome's collapse in the west and the final overthrow of the regime by Turkish invaders. The empire's capital, Constantinople, was one of the truly great cities of the world. Certainly the most opulent and important city in Europe in this period. from Constantinople radiated one of the two major branches of Christianity, the Orthodox Christian churches that became dominant throughout most of Eastern Europe. Like the other great civilizations of the period, the Byzantine Empire spread its culture and political influence to parts of the world that had not previously been controlled by any major civilization. Just as Muslim influence helped shape civilization in parts of Africa south of the Sahara, the Byzantines began to create a new civilization in the Balkans and western Russia, present-day Ukraine and Belarus, as well as western Russia proper. The empire also served as a major agent in interregional trade. It had active exchanges with the Arab world and other parts of Asia. The empire even imported techniques of silk production from China, which reproduced its dependence on foreign trade for this commodity, but shows its connection for larger fashion standards. Constantinople served as a hub for goods brought in from East Central Europe and Russia to be exchanged for Arab and Byzantine products. In various ways, the empire played a key role in extending the range of contacts as part of the formation of the transcontinental network. There were many commonalities between developments in Eastern and Western Europe. In both cases, civilization spread northward partly because of the missionary appeal of the Christian religion. In both cases, polytheism gave way to monotheism, although important compromises were made, particularly at the popular level. In both cases, more northern political units such as Russia, Poland, Germany, and France struggled for political definition with Africa or in Byzantium itself. In both cases, new trading activities brought northern regions into contact with the major centers of world commerce, including Constantinople. In both cases, newly civilized areas looked back on the Greco-Roman past as well as to Christianity for cultural inspiration, using some of the same political ideas and artistic styles. Yet with all these shared ingredients, the civilization that expanded in the East and developed in the West operated largely on separate tracks. They produced different versions of Christianity that were culturally as well as organizationally separate, even hostile. The civilizations had little mutual contact. Until late in this period, commercial patterns in both cases ran south to north rather than east to west. During most of the post-classical millennium, major portions of Eastern Europe were significantly more advanced than Western Europe in political sophistication, cultural range, and economic vitality. Byzantium long surpassed the West in its involvement with interregional trade. When the two civilizations did meet in this period and later, they met as distant cousins, related but not close kin. The Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire, in some sense, began in the 4th century CE, when the Romans set up their eastern capital in Constantinople. This city quickly became the most vigorous center of otherwise fading imperial structure. Emperor Constantine constructed a host of elegant buildings, including Christian churches, in this new city, which was built on the foundations of a previously modest town called Byzantium. Soon, separate eastern emperors ruled from the new metropolis, even before the western portion of the empire fell to the Germanic invaders. They warded off invading Huns, and other intruders, while enjoying a solid tax base in the peasant agriculture of the eastern Mediterranean. Constantinople was responsible for the Balkan Peninsula and northern Middle East, the Mediterranean coast, and North Africa. Although for several centuries Latin was the court language of the Eastern Empire, Greek was the common tongue, and after Emperor Justinian in the 6th century, it became the official language as well. Indeed, in the eyes of the Easterners, Latin became an inferior, barbaric means of communication. Knowledge of Greek enabled the scholars of the Eastern Empire to read freely in the ancient Athenian philosophical and literary classics, and in the Hellenistic writings and scientific treatises. spelled Treaties. The new empire benefited from the high levels of commerce long present in the eastern Mediterranean. New blood was drawn into administration and trade as Hellenized Egyptians and Syrians, long excluded from Roman administration, moved to Constantinople and entered the expanding bureaucracy of the Byzantine rulers. The empire faced many foreign enemies, although the pressure was less severe than that provided by the Germanic tribes in the west. It responded by recruiting armies in the Middle East itself, not by relying on barbaric troops. Complex administration around a remote emperor was surrounded by elaborate ceremonies, increasingly defined the empire's political style. Justinian's achievements. The early history of the Byzantine Empire was marked by a recurrent threat of invasion. Eastern emperors, relying on their local military base plus able generalship by upper-class Greeks, beat off attacks by the Sasanian Empire in Persia and by Germanic invaders. Then, in 533 CE, the empire's borders reasonably secure, and Then, in 533 CE, the empire's borders reasonably secure, a new emperor, Justinian, tried to reconquer Western territory in a last futile effort to restore an empire that of Rome. See map 9.1. He was somber, autocratic, and prone to grandiose ideas. A contemporary historian named Procopius described him as at once villainous and amenable, as people said, colloquially, a moron. As people say, colloquially, a moron. He was never truthful with anyone, but always skillful in what he said and did, yet easily hoodwinked by any who wanted to deceive him. The emperor was also heavily influenced by his power-hungry wife, Theodora, a courtesan connected with Constantinople's horse-racing world. Theodora stiffened Justinian's resolve in response to popular unrest and pushed the plans for expansion. Justinian's positive contributions to the Byzantine Empire lay in rebuilding Constantinople, ravaged by earlier riots against high taxes, and systematizing the Roman legal code. Extending later Rome architecture with its addition of domes to earlier classical styles, Justinian's buildings created many new structures, the most inspiring of which was the huge new church, the Hagia Sophia. Long one of the wonders of the Christian world. The great church would later become a mosque and is now a museum. This was an achievement in engineering as well as architecture, for no one had previously been able to build the supports needed for a dome of this size. Justinian's codification of Rome reached a goal that earlier emperors had sought but not achieved, summing up and reconciling many prior edicts and decisions. Unified law had not reduced confusion, but also united and organized the new empire, paralleling the state's bureaucracy. Updated by later emperors, the code ultimately helped spread Roman legal principles in various parts of Europe. Justinian's military exploits had more ambiguous results. The emperor wanted to recapture the old Roman Empire itself, and with the aid of a brilliant general, Belisarius, new gains were made in the North Africa and Italy. Justinian's forces were made their temporary capital, Ravenna, a key artistic center, embellished by one of the most beautiful Christian mosaics known anywhere in the world, figure 9.2. But the major Italian holdings were short-lived, unable to withstand Germanic pressure, and North African territory was soon besieged as well. Furthermore, Justinian's westward ambitions had weakened the empire in its own sphere. Persian forces attacked in the northern Middle East, while new Slavic groups moving into the Balkans pressed on another front. Map 9.1. Justinian finally managed to create a new line of defense and even pushed Persian forces back again, but some Middle Eastern territory was lost. Furthermore, all these wars, offensive and defensive alike, created new tax pressures on the government and forced Justinian to exertions that contributed to his death in 565 CE. Arab pressures and the empire's defenses. After some setbacks, Justinian's successors began to concentrate on defending the Eastern Empire itself. Persian advances in the northern Middle East were reversed in the 7th century, and the population was forcibly reconverted to Christianity. The resultant empire, centered on the southern Balkans and the western and central portions of present-day Turkey, was a far cry from Rome's greatness. However, it was sufficient to amplify a rich Hellenistic culture and blend it more fully with Christianity, while advancing Rome's achievements in engineering and military tactics as well as law. The Byzantine Empire was also strong enough to withstand the great new threat of the 7th century, the surge of the Arab Muslims, though not without massive losses. By the mid-7th century, the Arabs had built a fleet that challenged Byzantine naval supremacy in the eastern Mediterranean. While repeatedly attacking Constantinople, they quickly swallowed the empire's remaining provinces along the eastern seaboard of the Mediterranean and soon cut into the northern Middle Eastern heartland as well. Arab cultural and commercial influence also affected patterns of life in Constantinople. Byzantine territory was cut back to about half the size of the earlier Eastern Roman Empire. The Byzantine Empire held out nevertheless. A major siege of the capital in 717 to 718 CE was beaten back, partly because of the new weapon, a kind of napalm called Greek fire, a petroleum quicklime and sulfur mixture that devastated Arab ships. The Arab threat was never removed entirely. Furthermore, wars with the Muslims had added new economic burdens to the empire. Innovations and taxations weakened the position of small farmers and resulted in greater aristocratic estates, plus new power for aristocratic generals. The free rural population that had served the empire during its early centuries, providing military recruits and paying the bulk of the taxes, was forced into greater dependence. Greater emphasis was given to organizing the army and navy. After the greatest Arab onslaughts had been faced, the empire was run by a dizzying series of weak and strong emperors. Periods of vigor alternated with seeming decay. Arab pressure continued. Conquest of the island of Crete in the 9th century allowed the Muslims to harass Byzantine shipping in the Mediterranean for several centuries. Slavic kingdoms, especially Bulgaria, periodically pressed Byzantine territory in the Balkans, although at times military success and marriage alliances brought Byzantine control over the Feisty, spelled F-E-I-S-T-Y, Bulgarian kingdom. Thus, while a Bulgarian king in the 10th century took this title of Tsar, with it's spelled T-S-A-R, a Slavic version of the word Caesar, steady Byzantine pressure through war eroded their regional kingdom. In the 11th century, the Byzantine Emperor Basil II, surely through war, eroded the regional kingdom. In the 11th century, the Byzantine Emperor Basil II, known as Bulgaro-Katonos, or Slayer of the Bulgarians, used the empire's wealth to bribe many Bulgarian nobles and generals. He defeated the Bulgarian army in 1014, blinding as many as 1,500 captive soldiers. The fight of this tragedy brought on the Bulgarian king's death. Bulgaria became part of the empire, its aristocracy settling in Constantinople and merging with the leading Greek families. Briefly, at the end of the 10th century, the Byzantine Empire may have been the most powerful monarch on earth, with a capital city whose rich buildings and abundant popular entertainments awed visitors from Western Europe and elsewhere. Byzantine society and politics. The Byzantine political system had remarkable similarities to the earlier patterns in China. The emperor was held to be ordained by God, head of church as well as state. He appointed church bishops and passed religions as well as secular laws. The power of the state over the church was a key feature of Orthodox Christianity, in contrast with patterns in Western Europe. Elaborate court rituals symbolize the ideals of divinely inspired, all-powerful ruler, although they often immobilized rulers and inhabited innovative policy. At key points, women held the imperial throne while maintaining the ceremonial power of the office. The experiences of Empress Theodora, 981 to 1056, namesake of Justinian's powerful wife, illustrate the complex nature of Byzantine politics and the whims of fate that affected women rulers. Daughter of an emperor, Theodora was strong and austere, spelled Austere. She refused to marry the imperial heir, who then wed her sister Zoe. Zoe was afraid of Theodora's influence and had confined to a convert. A popular rebellion against the new emperor installed Theodora and Zoe jointly, and one assumed uneasily as empresses. Later, Theodora managed to check unruly nobles and limit bureaucratic corruption, although her severe retaliation against personal enemies brought criticism. Supplementing the centralized imperial authority was one of history's most elaborate bureaucracies. Trained in Greek classics, philosophy, and science in a secular school system that paralleled church education for the priesthood, Byzantine bureaucrats could be recruited from all social classes. As in China, aristocrats predominated, but talent also counted among this elite of highly educated scholars. Bureaucrats were specialized in various offices, and officials close to the emperor were mainly eunuchs. I have a hard time pronouncing this word. It's spelled Eunuchs. 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 Neuchs. I'm going to say eunuchs from now on. Provincial governors were appointed from the center and were charged with keeping tabs on military authorities. An elaborate system of spies helped preserve loyalty while creating intense tabs on military authorities. An elaborate system of spies helped preserve loyalty while creating intense distrust, even among friends. It is a small wonder that the word Byzantine came to refer to complex institutional arrangements. Careful military organization arose as well. Byzantine rulers adapted the later Roman system by recruiting troops locally and rewarding them with grants of land in return for their military service. The land could not be sold, but sons inherited its administration in return for a continued military responsibility. Many outsiders, particularly Slavs and Armenian Christians, were recruited for the army in this way. Increasingly, hereditary military leaders assumed regional power, displacing more traditional and better educated aristocrats. One emperor, Michael II, was a product of this system and was notorious for his hatred of Greek education and overall personal ignorance.